here we are in Snow Canyon State Park in southern Utah. We're at a spot where there was a famous movie filmed here, which is one of the most influential westerns of all time. We'll talk about that later. But right now we're on our way to go see an arch that's being formed. We're going to see some pioneer names that were painted on the wall, and we're going to see our version of the Sphinx. And so we're just on our way there, so let's head out.
Snow Canyon is about 12 minutes from the popular tourist resort town of St. George, Utah. It is, however, much smaller than Zion at only 11 square miles. Zion is about 240 square miles. There are two national parks that are smaller than Snow Canyon, but lately Congress hasn't been creating smallish national parks, so Snow Canyon is only a state park. That certainly doesn't stop it from showing off though, as it's home to some of the most awesome things you'll see in Utah. I'll show you many of them once we arrive, especially my favorite, which is a perfect spot to view the entire park at once and get that social media picture you've been dying for. It's an easy drive to get into Snow Canyon, and it only costs $15 to $20 per vehicle.
All right, here we are at the trailhead, and we're on our way to see some awesome things, including a baby arch and some pioneer names that were written in axle grease over 125 years ago. And so let's hit the trail. Here we go. Welcome to Snow Canyon State Park, a place that I think is worthy enough to be a national park, but it's kind of small. So follow me and I'll show you some cool stuff. You can obviously see that all bicycles must have riders.
As we make our way up the trail to the first destination, we notice the giant sandstone walls surrounding us on all sides within the park. These are called Navajo sandstone and were formed from giant sand dunes, being petrified or lithified beginning 270 million years ago. The sand layered into these massive sedimentary cliffs, and everything between them eroded away, creating these beautiful and accessible canyons.
So this section of the trail is called Pioneer Names because of that. In that little alcove up there, you can see some names that the Park Service here has determined are legitimate. Samuel Whitworth, Albert Graff. There's some dates, March 4th, 1881. Anyway, those were put up there with axle grease from wagons back in the late 1800s. These are old Swiss names. This area was settled by the Swiss. Don't know much about Switzerland, but the flag's a big plus. Okay, so the names have been protected by the top of the alcove so they didn't erode off, but if they're determined to be real, and if you look around them you see light spots, and the light spots are where people go up there and add their names to them, and then the Park Service comes and sands them off with a portable belt sander. Unfortunate, but it happens all the time. All right, next place.
As we make our way along these canyon walls, we happen upon a baby arch. We also come across several others in the forming process. Even though this is a beautiful location, don't be fooled, because the real prize is at the end of this short trail. Arches can be fragile geologic formations depending on rain, rock composition, and the amount of weight of rock above the arch, which helps determine how long it's going to be around.
So I like to point this out. This is interesting because this is another alcove, which means that this is the beginning of an arch. This probably won't ever form a through arch because there's just too much weight above it. It's going to collapse at some point. But if you follow the top of the arch all the way around to the left, then it curves back over, and then there's a bush. And if you look behind the bush, you can see there's another pioneer name carved in there, Lemuel Hyde, I think it says, and it's 18 something. But that one is probably a fake, because you can see how bright and shiny the letters are, as if they were just carved the other day. Whereas, like the one that we just saw, the letters were all worn and eroded away. And this is an example of people trying to do another hoax.
Don't ruin these experiences for everyone else. Leave everything how you found them, and don't try to trick people. This whole area here is called Island in the Sky.
kind of named after the area in Canyonlands called Island in the Sky. This is our big mesa. This is our big mountain, but not a mesa. Anyway, this is interesting because there's this ramp right here, and you can see along the way there's lighter spots on the rock. That's chalk from people walking up this thing, and then there's a mountain or a rock climbing route right there. There's probably a dozen or maybe 2 dozen rock climbing routes all along this way.
Southern Utah is one of the best spots for rock climbing, with the sturdy sandstone and tons of great holds on each cliff face.
Here's another really popular rock climbing route right here. You can see the first bolt is right there. You can see the chalk where they start off here and there and up there. I just don't know how they do it because I don't see any place for their feet. You know, it seems like they would just be pulling themselves up by their hands, but they're obviously very good at this or else they wouldn't be doing it. So they have some way of doing it. Most of the routes here are what's called lead climbing. And the lead climbing is the one that I have never tried, and I'm not going to because it's too easy to bang your knees into the rock and it's stuck, and that hurts a lot. Look how beautiful green this wall is right here, and that's called resurrection moss. Resurrection moss is really suited for the desert because when it hasn't rained for a long time, it kind of hibernates. It turns black and it looks like it's dead. But if you pour water on it or when it rains, then within seconds of the water hitting it, it turns this brilliant green. And we would do a demonstration, but all of this moss is green here. So there's not a good spot for it right now.
Nature always finds a way to survive, and resurrection moss is a great example of that. It's designed to survive desert conditions. It turns black and looks dead during drought conditions.
I've seen some people do some trad climbing, which is the old style traditional climbing, up this crack right here. Then they would get to the top, and there's some chains up there, and they strung the rope through the chains, ran it down, and they were able to do top rope, which is the safest of the different climbing styles, I think. It's the type where if you slip or let go, then you'll just hang there because someone has you on belay from down below. Anyway, they were doing that, and they had 2 little kids down at the bottom with these little tiny harnesses on, and they were helping them to learn how to do the top rope climbing. The mom was on belay, and when the dad came down, he was helping them go up. It was very interesting to watch.
If you ever want to try climbing, come visit Snow Canyon, where there is a thriving community of rock climbers and lots of locations.
This is a spot that demonstrates how these arches are formed. This is a baby arch as well. This one has the possibility of becoming a through arch because there's not that much rock up on top. But the arches that form here form exactly the opposite of the way that they form in Arches National Park. In Arches National Park, water flows like there'd be a ridge, and water would flow over the top, off the top and down the sides, and it would carve in gradually until it made a window. And then the window would get bigger and bigger and bigger until it left an arch. That's actually an example of that right over there. That window has formed because water would flow over the top of it and carved its way in from both sides. But the way that they form here in Zion National Park and St. George in this area is they form from the inside out, meaning that water would flow down the rock face, go down a crack, and then it would erode at the bottom, and then it would come horizontally. When it erodes at the bottom, then that weakens the rock above, and then it eventually falls, breaks off and falls, and leaves this opening. Then the water continues to flow over the face and erode that back further and further and further until eventually this whole part here is separate from that part, and it becomes a through arch, meaning that you can walk through it. These giant boulders here at the bottom, well, these largish boulders at the bottom, are the remnants of all the rock that used to be right here that fill this whole spot. And then all this sand is the remnants of all the big rocks that used to be here that eroded away over thousands and thousands of years, maybe even millions of years. Interestingly, if you look at the rock face here, you can see all these little divots in the stone, and that's from water just dripping off of the top and hitting that and forming those little cups. And it is indicative of how soft the sandstone is. I mean, it's not, you wouldn't want to hit your head on it. It's not pillowy soft, but it is soft as far as erosion is concerned. All right.
To continue this particular trail, we have to head back the way we came and drive just a little bit north on this road, where we'll be hiking on the other side of the canyon. This is where things get awesome.
All right, we have finished that section of the trail, and now we're off to the second part where we're going to see an amazing, probably the most amazing photography spot in Snow Canyon, where you can see 360-degree views, and it's spectacular. There's also a place where a famous Western movie was filmed, and then there's also some other really amazing rock formations along the way. So let's buckle up and head on out.
The famous movie in question is the 1969 production of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It was an absolute box office smash, earning over $100 million on a budget of only about 10% of that.
All right, here we are. Let's head on out. We're going to go up the mountain and see that amazing, incredible 360-degree viewpoint. So let's hit the trail, and we are on our way.
The sun was a lot higher at this point and wasn't blocked out by the mountain, which did get in the way of filming a little, but thankfully, since it's January, the temperatures didn't rise much. We found this section of the hike to be much more difficult, but very rewarding.
So up until now, we've been walking mostly on slabs of sandstone, which is very easy to walk on, and it's grippy. It's like walking on sandpaper. Now we're on basalt rock, which is lava flow. There's three main lava flows in Snow Canyon. The one up on top of that ridge was the first one, and then this one was a subsequent one. I don't know if it was number 2 or number 3, but it's interesting because the older lava flow is higher than the newer lava flow, and that's just because the lava protected the sandstone underneath it. All the mountains that were near it eroded down past the point of when that flowed, and then the next lava flow was down in this valley that was formed by erosion long after that one cooled off. This stuff is more difficult to walk on, so you got to be careful because your foot doesn't just slide over the top of it like it would if it was sandstone. It gets caught by this very jagged rock, and so be careful. Make sure you lift your feet up high enough so that you don't end up tripping.
Keep in mind that all of these formations I'm talking about take literally millions of years to carve out. That's the reason that you should always be respectful of nature, even if you think that you don't have any impact, you do.
We'll just take a little detour right here. I'll show you an interesting spot in the rocks. Kind of a neat little beginning of a slot that never really fully developed. But a slot canyon is one that's narrow and a little bit high. Usually it's higher than it is broad. So this is a little tiny slot canyon that's interesting. Look, this one piece here is holding up this whole side of the mountain right there. Nature's amazing. So we could go down and up and around that way, but then we have to come all the way back. So let's just head back out that way. Look at you, you're a professional cameraman. So we're going to head this direction, but I just wanted to point out that spot right up there on top. I've done these trails literally thousands of times. And when I say literally, I mean it in the literal sense. I've done it thousands of times. And I'd come through here many, many times, and then all of a sudden one day there was a house up on that point that hadn't been there the week before. And I thought, how did that happen? Where did it come from? And why is it there? And I thought, there goes all the sense of solitude that we used to have, but now we got a house up there. And I was kind of upset about it for a while, but then the next time I came through here, it was gone. So apparently it had been used as a facade for a TV show or a movie or something. This was a long time ago, so back when they used to film a TV series in Utah, they probably came down from Salt Lake City and built it.
Have you ever wondered how Snow Canyon State Park got its name? A lot of people don't know the actual reason.
So this whole area is called Snow Canyon State Park, and a lot of people think that it's named that because of that mountain there that's inside of the borders of the park, and it's white, obviously, compared with all these red and orange mountains inside of the park closer to us. They think, oh, that looks like snow fell on there. But that's not really the reason why this is called Snow Canyon. It's named after a family, the Snow family, who settled in this area. And that family had two sons. One was a Lorenzo and another was Erastus. And they gave this area to the state of Utah. They donated it, and it became a park after that. So that's why they name it Snow Canyon. So there's actually a town in northern Arizona called Snowflake, and I've been told that it's not called that because it snows a lot. It's because the same Snow family settled there, and another prominent family was the Flake family, and so they named it Snowflake. Probably a true story.
Now for the cool part. As you can see, we're getting closer to the white and red mountains.
So you look at these mountains over here, and you can see that it's striped with white and red, orange and pink, and it's mixed, it's interspersed. The white and the red are interspersed with each other. And there's probably a lot of theories as to how that happened, but these are all the remnants of giant sand dunes from hundreds of millions of years ago. And one theory is that as the sand was accumulating and became sandstone, that the pressures above it was packing all that sand down, and then water covered it. The water had iron oxide in it, and that coated the silica particles, the quartz particles, and then this became rock. But as it was compressing, there are some areas that didn't get compressed as much, and it was less dense. And as water flows through the sandstone, some areas it goes very slowly, can barely make its way through. Other areas it goes quickly because it's not as densely packed. Possibly that's the areas where it's white. It flowed through it quickly, picked up some iron oxide on the way down, and carried it with it down through and left these stripes, so maybe it's an indication of areas that weren't as densely or as tightly packed as other areas.
When you've been hiking these trails for 30 years, you tend to learn a whole lot about the landscape.
This is a really pretty view right here, especially if there's some cumulus clouds above it. But right through here makes a great picture with this in the backdrop.
That's another reason I want everyone to experience Snow Canyon. It is gorgeous here, and it's fun to just come and just bask in and take in the beauty. It's also a great place for wedding pictures.
This is a good spot to see examples of lava rock, which are these right here. That's lava rock. And then this sandstone that gets this patina on it, it's kind of a, it can either be from staining or it can be from desert varnish. Desert varnish is where there's microscopic organisms that excrete minute amounts of manganese, and that mixes with the mud that coats the rock and makes it black or very close to black. But some people, it's easy to see, some people get confused between the black sandstone and the black lava rock. Like this right here is black sandstone, and this is lava rock over here. They look very similar.
Now we can head into another part of the canyon through a short slot, and that's where we'll find the 360-degree view. Let's keep going.
This is a juniper tree. It's a fairly good survival tree because, you know, if you're out and you don't have a backpack like we don't have today, and you're hungry, you can actually take these juniper berries and eat the skin off of them. The skin is edible. The inside is a hard seed, so it doesn't digest, so you just eat the outside of it. And then if it's cold weather, you're exposed to the weather, then you can use this as tinder to start a fire. I'm not going to take any off of there, but here's a piece down here. If you were to take this bark off of it and crumble it up like that, it makes excellent tinder to start a fire with. So if you're working with just one match, you got to make it last, you got to make it work. Or if you're just having a difficult time getting anything going, then this works out really well. Just so that you know, don't strip this off. Don't strip the bark off of these trees just for fun, because it's not good for them. Obviously, I picked up a piece that was already on the ground, so be aware. As you go down this kind of slabby sandstone here that's at an angle, you just have to be careful and not step on parts where there's a lot of sand. The sand makes it just a little bit slippery. It's not extremely bad, but especially here because the angle is not so great and there's not that much sand. But you do watch out for it, and especially if the angle is greater and there's sand on it, be very careful. This is our little keyhole slot that we're going to. It's just created by boulders falling. When you get to right here, you just squat down, put your hand out. You can either do a controlled slide or just step down. Or just sit down and then... Ooh. This is called broadleaf yucca, and this had Native Americans use this for a lot of different things. It was like walking to the grocery store, because you could use the roots for soap, the seed pod before it goes completely to seed. You can cut that off and toss it in the fire, and it supposedly tastes like sweet potatoes. I've never tried it. Also, these leaves, if you cut them off and you soak them in water and then you pound them with a flat rock, then they separate into these fibers right here, and these fibers can be very, very tough. And they would make twine out of that, and then they would use that to make blankets and moccasins out of, using that and rabbit skins typically. The thing that, oh, also the flowers, this is also sometimes called banana yucca because the flowers are curved and they look like little bananas. And my friend who, those are edible, by the way, the flowers. My friend who's eaten one of those says that she's pretty sure that's where the word yuck comes from, is from this broadleaf yucca, because she says it tastes horrible. I don't know why they ate it if it tasted horrible, but another cool thing is that if you bite through the tip of this, but not all the way through, and then wiggle it until it comes free, it pulls out and it trails these fibers, and you can use it for sewing as a needle and thread. Very, very clever people.
Nature leaves a lot of evidence of the past, and it is fun to try to figure everything out.
So we came through that little keyhole slot, and we ended up in this little hidden valley here. This is obviously where we make ranch dressing. But that's the entrance through that slot, and then we make our way down this way where it broadens out, and we'll see the Sphinx. We have our Sphinx here. So right up here is a really good spot for a picture because you get 360-degree angles. And in the summertime, the 360 degrees actually refers to Fahrenheit because it does get really hot out here.
Well, we've made it to the final stretch. We've made it through the keyhole slot, and now we're in this tiny sub-canyon. Now we're going to summit that little rise ahead of us. It's going to be worth it, believe me.
Okay, so when we come up here, this is easy to climb up, but just to learn the rock climbing technique, it's called mantling, is when you use your hand this way. There's a handhold there, so this is like a brace, my right hand. Behold. Now these cliffs right behind you, you can see is red with some horizontal stripes. If you watch the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, this figures in the background fairly often while they're being chased by the posse, the Pinkertons. That's a movie from the 1970s, has Paul Newman and Robert Redford in it. And we're going to go now to another spot where that was partially filmed as well. But take a look at down here. This is awesome down here, just to go walking around and exploring and climbing, and it's really, really fun stuff. This road that you see here is access. It's called the West Canyon Road, and it goes out to pumping stations. You can just barely make one out. It's in pink. It's along the roadway down there, but it's kind of hard to see. But it's pumping stations because there's an aquifer below us, and they will pump water up and then pipe it over to these water towers or water tanks that are set in the ground right there. Right, a little more left. There you go, right there. Those shiny things there, those are big water tanks for collecting water from the aquifer. And then looking right down here is our version of the Sphinx. It's you can see the head and the feet down in front of it, just like the real Sphinx. The real one, this isn't the real one, obviously. The real one's in Canada or some other foreign country, Vermont maybe, someplace. Then off in the middle distance is the campground in the visitor center for Snow Canyon State Park. All right, be careful coming down this part. It's easy to get your foot stuck and then you topple forward, so pick your feet up, be very careful with where you step. You can actually see some more of that pack rat midden right down there, the clunky stuff that looks like it's attached, and it's just a clump of pack rat urine and feces and twigs and sticks and stuff that the pack rat has collected. And over the course of generations, it makes a midden right there that's somewhat dangerous. You got to just be careful about walking around that because, as I mentioned in a previous video, that's where hantavirus can be found. Hantavirus is rare, but there are about 30 or 40 cases reported every year in the United States. So if you look around, you see these really cool swirls and forms. That's the sandstone layering, but among it is a whole bunch of rough stuff over here, and that's where moki marbles have formed, and they're waiting to be eroded out, and then they roll down here, and you can see a whole bunch of them down here. But this is what they look like, and they're created, well, of course nobody's really sure how they form, but best guess is that inside of the already formed sandstone, this is like 200 million year old sandstone or more, these form inside. These things sometimes are less than 1 million years old, but they're inside of the sandstone. And one guess is that as water flows through the sandstone, it hits something, goes around, and continues on, leaving behind a layer of this higher density iron. And it does that over and over and over again. Another theory is when the water table was higher, whatever it was inside of that sandstone is submerged in the water that's inside of the rock, and it forms layer after layer after layer of this darker rock. If you were to break this open, and sometimes we can find one that's broken in half. I don't see one just offhand, but it's like an M&M. It's dark on the outside and red on the inside from this red sandstone. So those are called moki marbles, M-O-K-I, or sometimes M-O-Q-U-I, depending on where you're from. But there's a lot of them out here, lots and lots. I'll see if I can find one that's broken in half so you can see what it looks like. If you look at this right here, you can see how it has this little dimple on the inside of it. This is a moki marble that's been forming, that's been broken off, and the red interior is softer sandstone than this outside, which has a higher concentration of iron. So that red stuff has already eroded out on this one. So that's what it looks like after the red has eroded out. I'm trying to find one with red still in it. Check this one out. Pretty interesting. Here we go. Here's one. All these moki marbles here. Just recognize that these are not for picking up. These are to remain here. I should say they're not for picking up and keeping, because I picked up a couple. It is illegal to take these out of the park. So we were right here one time, and a roadrunner came running up to this hill, and then it passed and came up to here, and there was 3 of us, and went from one person to the next person to the next person, then back and back, looking up at us. and we were taking video. So if you look on YouTube, it's under Snow Canyon State Park Roadrunner. You can see the Roadrunner going from person to person. Then at one point he was in a shadow of one of us, and I said, hey, step over so that he'll be in the sunshine. As soon as he did that, he moved over. So one of the things he was after really was a little bit of shade. He was also looking for a handout, I'm sure, but also shade. By the way, roadrunners are awesome birds. They're semi-domesticatable. You can get them to come back to your house over and over and over again. You can leave out some food and they'll eat it and they'll come back and help rid your house of pests. They do eat rattlesnakes. They're able to kill a rattlesnake. They're not immune to the venom, but they are super fast, and they'll grab the snake by the neck and just pound it into the ground till it dies. Another thing that's, I think, really awesome is that some Native American tribes consider them good luck because their toes were arranged like this, 2 toes pointed forward and 2 toes pointed back. And their belief was, because of that, their predators didn't know which direction they were running. And so that was good luck for them. So if you ever see tracks that look like that on the ground, there's a good chance that that's a roadrunner. As you're walking through these fields of moki marbles, they are like little rough ball bearings. So be careful when you're on a slope, because you could be on something like this and slide, and it's a little bit on the dangerous side. So when we're going downhill, we try to avoid the moki marbles.
Well, this is it, the final summit of this video. One of the most beautiful natural things in the desert, and even better when it's full of water.
Right here is where a pretty famous scene from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that movie I was telling you about, took place. This is called a tank, and at the time that they made the movie, there wasn't any water in it. They had to truck it up from over there and bring it in and pump it into here. But this is the spot where I think it was Paul Newman did a Lipton iced tea moment, where he turned around like this and just fell backwards into the water because they had been being chased by a posse across the desert. But if you find that scene, look in the background and you'll see that same cliff that's red with the white horizontal stripes. And then you'll say, I've been there. Sort of, you've been there.
All right, that about does it, and that finishes the second part. Hope you've learned something new. We've really enjoyed having you with us. If you liked it, please subscribe, hit the like button, and if you want to learn more or have even more fun and do it with us, then look us up on tourzionandbryce.com, and we hope to see you in the future. Thanks a lot.